Alright, wanted to give a little bit of a closer look at this thing for any potential buyers. Now, yeah, I went a little bit overboard on the reflective taping. I got reflective tape over here, and I believe this is 3M Scotch Light. Now, I got these marks over here from when I had my saddlebags, but unfortunately, some homeless bum just cut off one side on that side, and I couldn't really do much of one half of the saddlebag, so I took them off. But I didn't really stick anything like tape or anything, so this is just scuffing left over from it. And also got, this is the old panel. I crashed this thing once, fell over on its left side at about 10 miles per hour on Mount Tantalus. Scooter had two cracked panels, but otherwise it got off a lot easier than I did because I broke my leg in two places when that happened. I didn't notice any other damage. I believe there's some scuffing on the left mirror because of that, but I had the mirror swapped out, very cheap. Good thing about this scooter is that, again, parts are very cheap. It's like maybe 10-15 bucks, maybe even less than 10 bucks for a panel. Of course, shipping costs probably cost more than, you know, the panel itself. And this one over here, I have two deep gouge marks, and yeah, this is where my saddlebag was cut off. So he stabbed right into the fairings here, and that's where it was hanging. Show some of my cool Farkles that I added on. This is a Takigawa aftermarket exhaust. Adds a little bit of power to it. Also makes it a little bit louder, but it's still pretty damn quiet, all things considered. I don't think it would ever it wouldn't even come close to like a larger 250cc bike of any type, honestly. So still quieter than, say, stock CBR or 250R. This one is a high pressure radiator cap. I decided to stick that on there because I had a big bore kit installed, just to help keep it cool. I don't think it would be too big of an issue, honestly, because right now she's running rich. So it should technically be running cooler than normal. This is also aftermarket, but it's just completely decorative, honestly. It's a piece of metal instead of the stock, which was kind of like plastic. Tires are Michelin City grips. These are just awesome. I wouldn't say they make too much of a difference in normal riding. Just helps you keep your grip during cornering and whatnot, because you have pretty much twice the number of treads, and they run a little bit closer to the center as well. Wouldn't exactly save you if, say, you ran across fresh or still kind of new paint while it's wet. But for everything else, it just helps you keep your grip on the road. The airbox cover here is aftermarket. I got it because it doesn't have these grills in the section, so it's just a large gaping hole. If you get leaves in there, it might get stuck on the filter. But honestly, I've got about 2,700 miles on this thing, and I haven't found any sign of it. I just, I think last week I took the filter out, which is also aftermarket. It's a DNA air filter made in Greece. Took it, cleaned it out. The only sign of, it being old, I guess, is that it's a cotton and wire instead of, just paper. And the oil that you're supposed to use on it is red colored. and the sign of it being old is that starts looking a little more white or lighter, maybe even pinkish. So I just cleaned it out, re-oiled it. It's all good to go. And this is a rack 2 for a top box. Very solid. It was really a bitch to get this thing off because they screwed on one of these bolts a little too tight. But I managed to get it off. Let's see here. Now I'm missing a screw over here. These two, not really necessary because it was holding on a piece of plastic which you had to pop off in order to install the rack. This screw is missing because underneath there's supposed to be like a metal piece that it screws into. So when I tried to put the screw in there, I noticed it was just dangling off. And when I took this off, I noticed that the piece underneath was broken off. Again, I pointed this out to my scooter shop, and the co-owner was just making a big deal out of it. I just wanted to kind of like gently prod them and say, hey, I know this is kind of small and petty, but I'm just saying I don't want anything critical missing inside, because I figure I'm just doing this installation for performance. I can accept it if the engine blows up. I just don't want to die because of it. But yeah, that screw is missing. If you want, you can order the metal piece underneath. It's like a one set piece over here like this. You can order that online and replace it if you wish, but it's not entirely critical. I mean, the fairing does flap a little bit because of that, but I haven't noticed anything performance wise. I don't think it's a safety issue, so. But yeah, this is for the top box, which is rather large, about 35 liters. Holds a lot of stuff, but I currently have it off because I don't want it, because of this whole saddlebag issue. I didn't want any accessories still on this thing for potential thieves, because they're probably gonna try to pry the box out next. The top box itself uses the official Honda key, so you don't have to carry another set of keys just to have it. So that's nice and convenient. I also kind of plastered it again with retroreflective tape. I don't exactly do a lot of night riding, and I guess it probably doesn't matter because the place where the tape helps the most is probably the back of your helmet. So where we take it off if you want. But yeah, I would say cosmetically she's pretty rough. I also dropped it on the right side. I was at a almost at a complete stop, but I made the mistake of still being on my brakes after it was raining, and it was kind of again fresh paint. So those tires, they're it's not exactly super it's not superhuman. It doesn't really can't defy the laws of physics. Got adjustable brake levers. Got a little bit of scratches from that. Again, I didn't have any major issues. It wasn't. I didn't even crack a panel. It just scuffed the side over here a little bit, and that was it. 2 drops total. Not too bad. And yeah, that's basically it. One thing to note that this I find really useful. It cuts down a lot on wind noise. Might help on acceleration, but honestly I think the real benefit is that you don't, especially when I'm geared up like this, I'm a little bit bulky, kind of like a football player, and if I'm going 60 or more, then the wind really drags on your chest, and this helps a lot with that. Also cuts down on the wind noise, so I personally haven't felt the need to ride with earplugs or anything. And I also got this. Is just kind of useless because I meant to. This is meant for the GoPro. But obviously, when you actually mount it, the GoPro is going to be pointed a little bit to the left if you put on the handlebars. And it does tend to vibrate quite a bit, and that, you know, gets picked up by the microphone, gets annoying after a while. This is a RAM mount for my iPhone 6. Now, obviously, you can just twist this out and have another mount put there, because for this, I have to take off the cover in order to get it on there. But other than that, pretty useful. Because sometimes when I'm riding around, I tend to get lost. Because of my gloves, I can't really manipulate the touch screen as much as I like. So generally, I just put something on here, something I'll use like maybe a GPS. This tracks the actual speed that I'm going on the road. You can also play music if you want, but I don't. Okay, I think that about covers everything on as far as the Farkles look around. Oh, I do have an aftermarket brake hose over here, as well as sintered brake pads as well. It's supposed to help a lot with stopping power. I personally haven't used it that hardcore. I haven't really gave it a hard test. But I suspect if I really jammed on the brakes, then I would probably lock out my front tire. That's how powerful it is. The rear, not so much, but I personally like it like that. Having a rear drum brake and front disc, because it's sort of set up like your typical motorcycle brakes, because you can't really jam your right foot down quite as hard as you can squeeze with your right hand. At least I haven't been able to. So it kind of solves the problem of panic braking, where you might accidentally lock up the rear brakes, because the rear brakes have less power than the front. So I personally think that helps a lot with safety in a panic. Alright, so let's see how long I last. I'm kind of hoping to go to Kaneohe today. I don't know how bad traffic is going to be backed up, because usually it's kind of bad around this time. I don't know. Might also have anxiety bladder issues, so might have to crap before I even get there, but just figure I'll give it a shot.